Coming up, local police threaten to shoot down a glider pilot, force him to land, and lock him up. Could it happen to you? We just avoided driving off the fiscal cliff, but could something bad still happen to general aviation? This light sport aircraft comes straight from the heart.
Landing an airplane is the single hardest thing I've ever learned how to do. Maybe that's my fault.
And inside the pilot studio, AOPA Live this week begins right now. Hello everyone, welcome to the first AOPA Live this week of the new year. I'm Tom Haynes. Imagine this, local cops order you to land. They're even talking about shooting you down. They arrest you. They won't let you call folks who are concerned that you're overdue. They throw you in the pokey for over 24 hours. Couldn't happen here? Well, you're about to see that it did in Darlington County, South Carolina. AOPA online editor Sarah Brown has the story.
The morning of July 27, 2012, pilot Robin Fleming found himself cold, tired, and hungry inside the Darlington County, South Carolina Detention Center.
About a 15 by 15 foot cell with 12 other inmates on a concrete floor with a dirty blanket thrown at you, and that was it for the night.
He was able to make a brief phone call and was waiting for a bond hearing to get out. But first,
they said that I needed to be interviewed by Homeland Security and the FBI.
What was Robin accused of doing to wind up in jail and be questioned by the feds? The charges said breach of peace. It all started the afternoon before, when he set out for a cross-country flight from Bermuda High soaring near Jefferson, South Carolina.
I took off from here and I was trying to do a 500-kilometer triangle course, and I set off, went to the north of here, but during the day I found that the thermal strengths were not that great, and I couldn't attain. I got up to I think 5,000 feet at times, but it wasn't the sort of day to do a long cross country, but I decided to cut it short.
There's a tow plane on the right there, just going down on...
Glider pilots searched for rising columns of air to climb up high enough to soar where they hoped to go. So when he decided to turn back, he had to find final glide, or enough altitude to make it home.
Okay, 22, looking.
His search took him around Lake Robinson, including one pass over the Robinson nuclear plant. A few minutes later, he saw a business jet taking off from nearby Hartsville Regional Airport, so he switched over to the Unicom long enough to hear something about a glider.
And I thought, I better listen to this, and there was a Unicom operator at the Hartsville airport that was asking me, you know, what my intentions were and what I was doing, and did I know that I was over the nuclear power station. I said yes, I knew, but the wind was taking me away. I was circling away from the power station. It was not my intention to return to it, and I was heading back to Bermuda High. So there was silence for a little while, and eventually they came back and said that they just wanted me to land. They demanded that I landed. I was actually at that time in a thermal. I was climbing. I only had to go another few hundred feet, and I would have made enough altitude to get back to Bermuda High. But I elected to comply with their request, and so I called a downwind and called traffic in the Hartsville area and proceeded to do a landing.
When he got on the ground, he was swarmed by law enforcement officers.
So really the next thing they did, they actually handcuffed me and took me off to a patrol vehicle. I counted, when I was inside this patrol vehicle, I counted 12 police vehicles, black police vehicles on the airfield. And I think later on somebody else counted 17 altogether. So this was, you know, obviously a pretty major incident that I'd created, and I still was puzzled as to what I'd actually done wrong.
It would take him hours to learn the charges were for breach of peace.
One of the statements that law enforcement said initially was, did I realize I was in a no-fly zone? And I said, no, I had no idea that I was in a no-fly zone. I said, I fly in accordance with FAA issued sectional charts, and there's nothing indicated on that chart to say that I was in a no-fly zone. And in fact, no-fly zone's not mentioned on charts. It's not a term that's used.
Not only did local law enforcement try to enforce airspace rules that don't exist, according to the Unicom operator, one officer wanted to take things a step further.
The police officers were talking to the fixed base operator and asking that I should be shot down. And so there was some talk of shooting my airplane down.
Robin was taken away to jail and spent more than 24 hours in custody, but the cops would not allow him to notify people back at the glider port. When he didn't come back, Jane Ewing Reed started to worry.
It was getting downright, late, and we still hadn't heard anything. So this is when you get that feeling, that something's not right.
They filed a missing aircraft report and started a search effort. A few hours later, she finally got word of what happened.
Could you repeat that, please? No, it was disbelief. It was Homeland Security and the FBI. I was at that point relieved because at least we knew where Robin was and he wasn't, in some field somewhere.
But the drama continued well into the next day.
About midday, I was taken out of the cell again and taken to a room, handcuffed, and there I met 3 people, 2 of whom were, I think, associated with Homeland Security, a lady and a gentleman, and 1 person from the FBI, and also the law enforcement officer was there present.
Robin explained to the authorities what the regulations were and that there is nothing marked on the sectional chart that says pilots can't fly over the Robinson plant.
I'll push it to this side, yeah.
He was bailed out of jail later that day and in August had his charges dismissed in exchange for agreeing not to sue Darlington County. Now that he's cleared his name, he wants to make sure pilots can be confident in relying on the sectional charts so that they can enjoy sunny days in the sky and not cold nights in jail.
And certainly glider flying is my passion.
Sarah Brown, AOPA Live.
An amazing story and rather scary, too. AOPA has been fighting for Robin Fleming since he got out of jail 5 months ago, and your association is working to ensure that in the future, law enforcement agencies and security at critical infrastructure understand how to respond appropriately when they have a concern about an aircraft. AOPA reached out to the staff of the Transportation Security Agency and National Protection and Programs Directorate. We requested action formally in a letter to DHS, the organization's parent agency. The TSA said it takes these matters seriously, quote, both in context of aircraft loitering in airspace around critical infrastructure, as well as appropriateness of responses by various organizations at the federal, state, and local levels. TSA said it would continue to work with agencies at all levels regarding airspace. Well, Robin is a longtime member of AOPA Pilot Protection Services. He received additional assistance from plan attorney John Hodge. Hodge is a 17,000-hour ATP-rated pilot. He offers some pointers in case you ever wind up being questioned by law enforcement.
So if the police start to question you, it's very important very early in the process to ask the question, am I under arrest? And if you're not under arrest, you are certainly free to leave the area, leave the situation. Of course, there again, that's where you want to make sure you have your driver's license, that you have your pilot certificates back. If they want to look at them, they need to return them to you. If the police tell you that you're under arrest, then realize that anything that you say can and will be used against you. So it's very important that you retain the services of an attorney as soon as possible. And this again is where the AOPA Legal Services Plan does have a network of lawyers, and they can certainly put you in touch with someone and provide representation. And it's better that your lawyer then speak to law enforcement on your behalf. And as much as you want to maintain a civil and a compliant attitude through this entire process, you also don't want to make statements that later will be used against you to try to prove somehow that you violated either a local statute or ordinance or an FAA regulation for that matter as well.
You can become a member of AOPA Pilot Protection Services. It puts expert aviation attorneys at your disposal. Plans cost just $39 a year for a private pilot and $99 for a Protection Plus plan. Look for Pilot Protection Services on AOPA.org. You can find much more information about Robin Fleming's ordeal in the February edition of AOPA Pilot magazine. The digital edition comes out next week. You can get even more information right now on AOPA.org. Coming up after the break, a Luxury LSA and an exclusive interview with pilot, actor, and the host of Inside the Actor's Studio, James Lipton.
From your first skyward glance, the dream of flight compelled you. And from your first glimpse of a Cirrus, you realized that dream had a name. Cirrus Aircraft. Go where you've never been before.
Welcome back to AOPA Live this week. When you work for somebody else, you can't always do things the way you think they should be done. So after helping design several of the popular light sport aircraft for other companies, aeronautical engineer Milan Bristella decided to create an aircraft that followed his vision, or rather his heart. Here's more from AOPA pilot senior editor Al Marsh.
The Bristell is the lifelong dream of Milan Bristella, a legendary aircraft designer from the Czech Republic. It's the luxury model for the light sport aircraft fleet, starting at $150,000. But with options, it can reach $200,000.
Let that nose come on up and straighten her out perfect.
Until now, Bristella has worked for others.
The plane is coming from my 18 years experience working in this UL and LSA category of airplanes.
He designed 5 aircraft, including the popular Sport Cruiser.
Sport Cruiser coming in now, keeping his wing into the wind here as he touches down.
But this one is just for Milan. That's why he put his last name on it. It's the way he always wanted to do it, from the heart.
This aircraft design and production is my life, and I have it in my heart. That's why it's Wings with Heart, because I am doing it in my heart.
Al Marsh, AOPA Live.
You can read more about the Bristell in the digital edition of January's AOPA Pilot magazine. In that same issue, Al writes about the state of the light sport aircraft industry after 8 years. He says the LSA industry is not yet strong, but has a promising and sustainable future. Look for more LSA coverage by our editorial team over the next couple of weeks as we cover the Sebring LSA Sport Aviation Expo in Florida next week. We know a little bit more about the FAA's fiscal future now, at least until the end of February. As you know by now, we did not fall off the fiscal cliff yet. Congress and the President reached a deal that keeps tax rates about the same for most of us and delays steep budget cuts. But are general aviation and the FAA out of trouble? We talked to AOPA President Craig Fuller.
They took a crack at lowering taxes that would have gone up for the middle class, and on spending, they said we're going to give ourselves another 30 to 60 days to debate the spending cuts. And so I think this is all going to come to a head, if you will, in the February to March timeframe, when they have to find ways to reduce spending, but they also have to actually go ahead and find a way to raise the debt limit. It's going to be fairly contentious by all appearances. The President has said he does not want this debate over the debt ceiling. But you know, this is Washington, D.C., where you really, if you have to get Congress to agree to something, you kind of have to engage with them and have a debate if there's going to be it's not going to be easy. We have basically not gone over the cliff, but I think we're still driving near the edge of the precipice. And in the next 30 to 60 days, a lot of things have got to get sorted out.
As you said earlier, we have sort of kicked the can down the road to the end of February. And again, if Congress doesn't act, the sequester cuts will kick in. How likely do you think that is, and how likely do you think that when it's all said and done, the FAA will see a cut in its budget for this year? Well, the really challenging thing is that the reductions envisioned in the sequester are reductions on a budget that are calculated over the 12-month period of the budget, which began in October of last year. So the longer we wait, the harder it is to find what could be $1 billion reduction in the FAA's budget. And frankly, it's almost impossible because we're not going to reduce safety issues. It's not going to be possible to shut down control towers all over the country, and the controllers need to be compensated for the important work that they do. You get down to the point where there are just fewer and fewer categories within the Federal Aviation Administration that you can actually cut. The other element of this is the President has said he wants to pursue reforms of the tax system and revenue reforms, and that tends to get us into areas like aircraft depreciation, which some would see as a loophole. We don't believe that's the case. Other revenue measures would bring us into user fees. And so very quickly, we may find ourselves confronted with some specific issues that affect general aviation, even though the larger debate is probably going to be over these automatic spending and entitlement programs.
Well, Congress did something else to help aircraft owners and the GA industry. It extended and expanded the bonus depreciation rules. Those rules give favorable tax treatment to people buying major capital items like airplanes. You can read more about it on AOPA.org. And while the Senate was voting to keep us from going over the cliff, it also confirmed some presidential appointments, including that of Michael Huerta to be the FAA administrator for the next 5 years. He's been acting administrator since Randy Babbitt resigned last year. We also asked Craig for his thoughts on the new administrator.
Well, we are very pleased to see Michael Huerta be confirmed by the Senate as the FAA administrator. This is something that we had urged the Senate to do, and we were pleased that they were able to act even in the middle of the debate over the fiscal cliff. But it's very meaningful because you had an acting administrator who basically was wearing two hats and doing two jobs, and he's very able, but I think in the near term now, he'll be able to identify a deputy. He'll have to work with the White House, of course, but that person does not have to be confirmed by the Senate. And so fairly soon we'll have a full-time confirmed administrator and a deputy, and I think that will help us as we go forward on some of the issues that we're all facing this year.
You've talked with him on numerous occasions. Do you think he has a good feel for general aviation?
You know, as an FAA administrator, what you hope for is someone who understands the issues and how they affect general aviation, and he does definitely have a good feel for the issues that affect us. Also, you want somebody who will listen to us and invite us to the table when policy discussions are held, and that's been the case from the very beginning. He's very open. He listens to our point of view. We're not going to always be in agreement, but that interaction has proved very valuable, and of course it translates throughout the whole agency, so that if the administrator is conducting himself that way, it's also very much the case with other key officials within the FAA.
Craig was talking to us from Wichita, where he is doing recurrent training at Flight Safety. Good luck with that, Craig. You may know him from inside the actor's studio on Bravo, or from Will Ferrell poking fun at him on Saturday Night Live. But did you know that James Lipton is a pilot? AOPA Live's Paul Harrop visited him in his Manhattan home. He turned the tables on the legendary interviewer to talk about flying.
Thank you so much for having us into your lovely home here, and we want to turn the tables on you. We've got our blue cards and 10 questions. Are you ready? How did you get started in aviation?
I volunteered for the armed services as a cadet pilot. I began my training, but I didn't finish because they came to us and they said, look, there's no war going on at this moment, and therefore it's very expensive for us to train you, so you'll have to sign up for, I think it was 4 years they asked us for, after we finished our training and got our wings and our bars. And so you'll have the option either of signing up with us for that length of time, or we'll say thank you very much and so long. I thought about it hard because I really did want to be a pilot, but I went home and didn't resume my training until years later as a general aviation pilot. That's when I got my ticket.
He's an interesting guy. You can see our full 15-minute interview with James Lipton right now on AOPALive.org. Just type Lipton into the search box. And that's it for this week. We'll see you right back here next Thursday for AOPA Live This Week. I'm Tom Haynes. Thanks for watching.